To manufacture a DB4 GT Zagato takes 4,500 man-hours. Now, to put that in perspective, things like our DBS Superleggera car takes just over 200 man-hours. So it's an enormous amount of time and care and dedication that goes into building what is ultimately the world's most expensive production motor car, and it's built here at Newport Pagnell.
The association between Aston Martin and Zagato starts back with the DB4 GT. So 1960, we've got DB4 GTs being delivered to customers as a kind of ready to go race car, road car. So drive it in a week, race it at the weekend. The car, was pretty successful, but we just always, whenever we came up against a Ferrari 250 short wheelbase, we always just had that little bit of extra struggle because of the performance factor that the Ferrari had.
In lap 8, Sterling Moss, number 7, took the lead from Parks, and before long was lapping a few competitors.
So we were seeking a way of trying to extract more from what we'd already got. DB4 GT was already shorter, lighter, a little bit more powerful than an ordinary DB4. So we'd done as much as we almost could to that car. So the idea was to take the chassis and put a different body on it, make it a lighter and more aerodynamic body. So we went to touring, the people who styled the DB4 originally, and they unfortunately had quite a bit of work on at that point, and they weren't able to help us directly. So they recommended to us Zagato, another Italian coach builder. And we'd also heard good things about Zagato. They'd helped Bristol do a lighter version of one of their cars. So off we went to Zagato, and they came up with this amazing looking design, really, styled by Ercole Spada. And really what he came up with was a car that was more aerodynamic and lighter by using thinner gauge aluminium, and also components wherever we could, either taken away or made from aluminium. So there's as little equipment on that car as possible, really. Even things like perspex instead of glass windows for the side and the back of the car. And yeah, just really trying to take the weight out of the finished vehicle. And that really added up to a car that just had that more of a chance out on the track. I guess in the eyes of a lot of car enthusiasts, it's almost like a perfect storm, really. You've got the British quality and the understatement of the Aston Martin itself, and then reclothed really in the finest handmade Italian clothes. It's probably the best way to describe it. Personally, I've always said that Zagato Aston Martins are just different. They may not necessarily be better looking than the car they're based on, they're just different. Now, to some people, maybe the prettiest car we ever made was the DB4 GT Zagato. Certainly a lot of people would agree with that. But there's no denying it that the car it's based on is equally pretty and beautifully proportioned. They're just different. And I think one great thing about Zagato, right from the beginning, is we can always push the boundary a bit further than where we would normally go ourselves. So the styling can just be that little bit more outrageous, that little bit more voluptuous, maybe a little bit more edgy than what we probably would normally sell as an Aston Martin. And I think if you look at the DB4 Zagato, it is just so elegant, and it's one of those things in life where if it kind of looks right, it is right. And there are so many amazing machines over the last 130 years, either ones that fly or ones that drive on the road, that sometimes, again, they are just a perfect storm. They just happen to look great and they happen to function perfectly. And I think that's really the key thing with the DB4 Zagato. It's as good as it looks. It drives better than it looks, really. So yeah, I think it's one of those perfect kind of products, really. The forecast was to make 25 cars. Now, reality was the car was a very expensive car. An ordinary DB4 was priced just under £4,000. The GT was sort of 4.5, but the Zagato, by the time the car had been built in Britain and shipped to Italy and back again with the body on, pushed the price up at a retail point at sort of over £5,500. So £5,500 was a big jump on what was already an expensive car. So trying to sell a £5,500 sports car in 1960 was really quite a tall order for anybody. But the last remaining 2 cars were sold almost at a discounted price to kind of move them on and draw a line under the project, which is one of those kind of great unfinished runs of cars really, and the magical number of 19 cars.
Continuation cars came about because obviously here at Aston Martin Works, we're the heritage home of Aston Martin. We had all the artisan skills here to actually build a completely new car, but nobody actually thought about putting that together. So I came up with the concept of actually, if you like, reintroducing our back catalogue, and the continuation cars were my idea to actually start building new cars. Obviously we couldn't do a modern car, we couldn't do something like a DB11, so going right back to the start, going back to DB4, doing a car like the DB4 GT, which is a complete icon, made perfect sense to me. Clearly we needed to put some differences into the cars. If we built the car they built in 1959, it wouldn't meet our customer expectations. But it is a very pure car, so we used a lot of digital scanning techniques. We scanned a number of bodies from original cars. We gave that data to the design team at Gaydon, and they basically produced what is the most beautiful body. It is the purest body, and it's symmetrical, which obviously the original cars weren't. So we delivered a very high quality vehicle as well. The other part that we wanted to do is we really wanted to give the car a performance feel. So the original car was 3.7 litres. We went up on the engine by an entire litre to 4.7 litres. So we managed to extract just over 390 horsepower out of the engine. And that makes the car really live and really exciting to drive. And you know, we raced the car recently down at Paul Ricard with Patrick Peters in his series, and the car really came alive at that point in time. And I'm very pleased with what we delivered in terms of that fantastic competitive package, but it drives in a very authentic way. We haven't made it drive like a modern car. It's got the original style brakes, original style suspension, but we just kind of, if you like, turn the volume from 7 or 8 up to 10.
To build a bodywork, you basically got to start breaking it down into sections so that we can make it out of single pieces of material and then join them all together, which basically involves getting them to split lines on the body panels, and that's where you can allow enough metal to be made using the handmade processes of the yesteryear when the car was originally made back in the 60s. We try to keep it to original spec in terms of sections are made up and then welded together, hand finished, planished, metal finished, and then those sections become an assembly, so a front end or rear end assembly and a roof panel. Then they're all welded together so it becomes a full metal wrap on the chassis. It's a beautiful thing because in a way the tools that are available and the processes in the day had a hand in shaping the car of that time, and so it's nice to tie them all together because it all sort of makes sense like a puzzle as why the shapes were made that way and why the panels are broken down into sections because of the tools they had and the skills they could do. So yeah, it's a continuation and it's nice to do it and continue that skill going forward because they're just so relevant to today's engineering principles and practices anyway in terms of learning and carrying those on. They're valuable skills that need to be kept. When you see a finished car go out, at different stages, when you see a body in white go out of the panel shop, you're very proud of what you've done. You know, you've brought a collection of parts together and you've made it into a stunning looking car. And as you watch that car go through the process, the paint goes on, the trim and the rest of the parts, and it becomes a living, breathing car. It's just phenomenal, yeah. You're very proud of it, the whole process, and nice to be involved with it.
When it first comes into the paint shop, it comes in its body and white form, which is an aluminium shell. We then work on 3 main processes. So first of all, we do the primer work, which is key. The primer work, people don't realise, is the most key part. It's where the paint goes to. So without the primer work being right, the paint work never will be. So primer, then we do paint application, and then we do our final polish and inspection. So the formulations on what they used in the 1960s to what we use now is totally different, completely different technology. We're now at a water-based technology, so years of testing, materials being banned that are no longer environmentally friendly, now use this material. What we did at the beginning of this project, we got back to the 1960s and we took the original plaques from when they were made. So we went through the archives, and then we took that original plaque and then we got it made in the modern formulation. So a lot of work done to ensure that these colours are as close a match as possible, but in the modern technology that we have to use today for the environment. The best feeling about working on a DB4 GT Zagato is knowing that there is only 19 of them to our customers. The team have a sense of pride and something they can go home and tell their family about, knowing that they painted a DB4 GT Zagato, where not many people can say this. That builds in great team bonding and pleasure for guys working here to understand what they're doing. It's a very small people get to experience it.
It's a bit like seeing your first child being born. It can be quite emotional. Not quite as emotional as the end of the first race that we did, because it was a culmination of many years of work. You know, we didn't just all of a sudden come and go, oh, we're going to do DB4 GT Zagato Continuation. You know, this is years and years of hard work, not just by myself, but by the rest of the team here to deliver this car. So yeah, at the end of the race, a 40-minute race, and you know, the car in its first race survived and actually did pretty well with a fairly average driver. It was an emotional moment for me, and to be fair, for the rest of the team that were down there with us. Clearly, back in 1959, the cars were built in a very different manner, and perhaps not as, the quality ethos was not quite as strong as it is perhaps today. And what we want to deliver, obviously our price point, is a very, very high quality item. And I believe we deliver today to our customers with Zagato Continuations, the very highest quality of continuation car that's anywhere in the world.